The national championship game is set. It is TCU and Georgia. And on today's show, we're going to have a full preview of this matchup at SoFi Stadium a week from tomorrow, Monday night, January 9th. But who you got? What's your early prediction? Who's winning this game? Type TCU for the TCU Horned Frogs or UGA for the Georgia Bulldogs. Let us know, and let's preview this matchup on today's show. You're watching College Football Now. I am Harrison Graham, and my goodness, what a college football playoff semifinal day. Easily the best we have seen up to this point in 9 years in this system. I mean, both games were phenomenal, and like I said, the stage is set, but we'd be remiss if we did not talk a little bit about how these two teams got here, as TCU outguns Michigan 51-49. Max Duggan, not the best game throwing the football, but came up big when he had to. 14-29, 225, 4 total touchdowns. Emari Demarcado filling in for an injured Kendre Miller, runs for $150 at a touchdown, and Quentin Johnston winning the Fiesta Bowl MVP, 163 yards and a score. J.J. McCarthy did throw 2 pick sixes, but he battled late, tried to pull Michigan back into this one, came up just short. Donovan Edwards held in check outside of that opening run of 54 yards. I thought TCU did a nice job on him, and Roddy Bell really had a huge second half as Michigan tried to stage the comeback. In the Peach Bowl, I mean, both these games, instant classics. 42-41, the defending champion Georgia Bulldogs pull it off. A Noah Ruggles field goal, wide left to say the least, as Ohio State couldn't pull it off, but C.J. Stroud turned some heads. He made himself some money in the NFL draft last night. Stetson Bennett struggled at times, but I mean, he kind of just does this, right? When he has to make plays, he does, and he was able to do just that as Georgia looks to repeat for the first time in a while for any team in college football. So there you have it. TCU, Georgia. It's going to be at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, where the Rams and Chargers play Monday, January 9th. At 7:30 Eastern. This should be a fantastic game and a very, very fun one as well. So let's preview this one a little bit more. So you got TCU coming in with the top 5 scoring offense, 41 points per game, 65th in scoring defense, but I think as you guys saw, a defense that makes plays when it has to. Red zone defense was tremendous against Michigan. 2 pick sixes. That was huge as well. Obviously, Georgia, who's a 13.5-point favorite right now, they've got a top 10 scoring offense, top 5 scoring defense. So, again, on paper, they're going to be the team to beat in this one. But listen, if we've learned anything about these Horned Frogs, they just do not go away. Subscribe to the channel. We'll have some college football coverage throughout the week. Transfer portal stuff still ongoing right now, especially as these bowl games wrap up. You're seeing new names enter the portal, so we'll have you covered on all of that. We'll probably have some more college football playoff coverage as well, so hit the subscribe button. NFL draft coverage as well. A lot of big-time players in this national championship game. We'll have you covered with everything college football and NFL related here at Chat Sports, so subscribe. It's 100% free. Let's take a look at this quarterback battle as you got Max Duggan and Stetson Bennett, a couple of guys who probably cut from the same cloth, right? Where, not the most talented guys in the world, especially in Bennett's case, a former walk-on, but just 2 gamers, right? I mean, the numbers are good for both these guys. 2 Heisman finalists, Duggan the runner-up, Bennett getting 4th, and 2 guys that came up big in the semifinal games. These QBs are great competitors. I mean, just gritty. What the best of college football offers, right? Like 2 guys that they're not going to be high draft picks necessarily. I think guys that will get drafted, but just guys that stuck it out, grinded, and, Bennett's a defending national champion. We all know Duggan's story by now. Benched his senior year with the new coaching staff, gets a second opportunity, and has taken off this year like he has. So these 2 guys are going to bring it and play, hopefully at a very high level. Let's talk about the injuries a little bit. A key player for each team getting banged up in their semifinal games. Kendre Miller, the running back for TCU, who ran for over 1,300 yards and was averaging over 7 yards a carry against Michigan, injured his knee. He called it an MCL tweak after this after the game said he'd be ready to go. That's easy for a player to say in the heat of the moment. We'll see what happens over the next week or so. Obviously, that would be somewhat of a notable loss if TCU didn't have him out there. Darnell Washington, one of two great tight ends for Georgia. He suffered an ankle injury, was in a walking boot and on crutches in the second half of that game. Kirby Smart did not rule him out. Neither player has been ruled out for the national championship, so we'll see how the recovery goes. Again, with it being on Monday, a couple extra days for these teams to rehab and prep for this one. So I would say there's a chance one or both of these guys play. I don't think neither guy will be 100%, but how many guys are at this point in the season? But Washington for Georgia, Kendre Miller for TCU, two key components to each of these offenses. We'll see if one or both of these guys is able to go. Now for TCU, Emari Demarcado in Miller's absence, I mean, a career game. 17 carries, 150 yards, and a touchdown, averaged almost 9 yards a carry. Did have a pretty brutal fumble that allowed Michigan to cut it to 3 once again, but I think that was the story of that game is TCU just kept responding every time Michigan got close, and Demarcado was a big part of that. He had several big runs in the second half that were huge for TCU's offense. Kenny McIntosh, the running back for Georgia, kind of a do-it-all player, 70 rushing yards, 56 receiving yards in that game. 12.5 yards per touch, had a touchdown as well. Would have had a second one, but the turf monster caught him at about the 10-yard line where he broke loose on a long run. But, both these teams are going to run the football, which will set up the passing games as well. Now, who do you guys think will win the national championship MVP in this game? Who's going to win the MVP trophy? Obviously, it'll almost certainly be someone from the winning team. So if you think Georgia's going to win, say Stetson Bennett, Brock Bowers, defensive player as well. If you think it's TCU, Max Duggan, Quentin Johnston, probably one of those guys. Let me know who's going to win the MVP for the national championship. Give your thoughts down in the comments. Now, we'll take a look at the betting matchup here as our show is sponsored by BetUS. And if you want to go bet on the national championship and tons of prop bets that'll come out in the next few days with BetUS, go create an account today by going to chatsports.com/bet. Plug in our promo code CHAT125 to get 125% deposit. Put down $100. They will give you an additional $125 for free. And the early betting odds, Vegas loves the defending champion Bulldogs, 13.5-point favorites. The over-under at 63 points. And if this game plays out anything like the semifinal games did, the over's definitely in play, although I do think the defenses will probably respond a little bit more, but you just never know. I mean, both these teams have guys that can really go, but if you feel good about Georgia covering or TCU covering, whatever the case may be, go bet on it. Chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125. Now, Quentin Johnston had a big-time game against Michigan, and he's been a big-time player all year as he's really the top target on TCU's offense by a mile. I mean, 27 yards a catch, a touchdown. I mean, the 3rd and 7 play where Duggan hits him on the drag, he breaks a tackle and goes 75 yards. I mean, monumental play in that game. And he's the type of player that can take over and win a game for you. I mean, that play was ultimate proof of that. I mean, that play was monumental in TCU's win over Michigan. He can take over a game like this. I thought Keely Ringo struggled against Marvin Harrison Jr., so I think Quentin Johnston probably has the edge in that matchup going into this game. So we will see what happens on that front. Brock Bowers, the go-to guy for Georgia, and especially with Darnell Washington banged up, and we'll see if he plays, but Bowers is going to even need to have a bigger role. 4 catches, 64 yards against Ohio State. Anais Smith had a nice game as well, over 120 yards and a touchdown, but Bowers is the X factor. I mean, he is the guy that can create mismatches. Now, TCU has some linebackers and safeties that are going to be able to guard him. I wonder if Joe Gillespie, the TCU defensive coordinator, will put Hodges Tomlinson or Josh Newton on him at all. They're outside corners, but that's going to be a pretty big size discrepancy there. So we'll see how TCU chooses to defend these tight ends for Georgia as they use the tight end position probably better than anybody in college football. Now, who do you guys think will have the bigger game in the national championship? Type QJ for Quentin Johnston, type BB for Brock Bowers. Johnston certainly has got the higher ceiling type of potential game. Bowers probably a little bit more of a safer option. Let me know. QJ for Quentin, Johnston, BB for Brock Bowers. Look at some defenders for each of these teams, some guys to keep an eye on. Jalen Carter, who really didn't flash much in the semifinal game. Now, I will give Georgia's defensive line a lot of credit when they had to limit Ohio State in getting yards on that final drive where Ohio State missed the 50-yard field goal. They got a tackle for loss and 2 pressures on Stroud where he had to throw the ball away. That forced a 50-yard attempt. So this Georgia defensive line is certainly very capable with Carter and Michael Williams, but they didn't play their best game. So we'll see if they're able to bounce back against TCU. Keely Ringo, he's been a good corner this year. I thought he got beat several times against Marvin Harrison Jr. That's a tough matchup, obviously. That matchup with Quentin Johnston will be interesting. Malachi Starks, Christopher Smith, 2 of the leading tacklers and guys that could take the football away on the back end for Georgia as well. For TCU, a couple of key defenders here. Dylan Horton, I mean, he's really come on down the stretch, had several pressures of McCarthy in that matchup. D. Winters had a pick 6. He was fantastic, was all over the place. Johnny Hodges had a lot of tackles at linebacker as well. Travius Hodges-Tomlinson and also Josh Newton at corner, 2 really good cover guys. Hodges-Tomlinson's a little grabby. He's probably good for at least 1 PI in this game, but he's going to be scrappy and get some breakups. And then Bud Clark had that other pick 6 as well. I mean, he's been key all year as him and Winters each had pick 6s against Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl. Clark leads the team with 5 interceptions. So there you go, some defensive guys to keep in mind and some key matchups that I went through as well. There you have it. Predict the score. We'll probably preview this game later in the week, maybe with some injury updates on Miller and Washington, so keep an eye on that. But get those score predictions in, who you got winning, and what is the final score going to be. Let us know in the comments. All right, that's going to do it for college football now. What a great day for college football Saturday was. Hopefully the national championship delivers. If it does, easily the best year of the playoff with how good these first 2 games have been. Hopefully the final game delivers as well. I'm Harrison Graham. Hit that subscribe button for more college football, NFL, and NBA coverage. We'll see you next time here on the channel.